You know, when you strip it all down, all of politics, all our laws, our governments, it's all trying to answer one single massive question we've been asking forever. How should we live together? Seriously, every political idea you've ever heard of is just another stab at answering that one huge question.
So, here's one answer for you. It's brutal, it's simple, and let's be honest, there's a part of us that gets it. This is the logic of pure, raw power. In this world, society is just organized so that the strong can win. The whole point is total domination. It's a simple and, frankly, a pretty terrifying way to live.
But for most of human history, we've had this feeling, this hope, that there has to be something more to it than that. And that's where our story really kicks off. Is there a better, more just, more peaceful way for all of us to get along?
Okay, so to find the first great answer, we have to travel way, way back, all the way to ancient Greece and Rome. And their idea of what politics was well, it was completely different from how we see things today.
See, for thinkers like Plato and Aristotle, politics wasn't about the economy or individual rights. The whole point of the community, what they called the polis, was to be a kind of character factory. Its entire job was to shape people into the best, most virtuous human beings they could possibly be.
This analogy is just perfect. The ancients saw a built-in purpose for everything. An acorn's whole deal is to become a huge, strong oak tree. Well, they believed a person's purpose was to achieve moral and intellectual excellence, to be a great person. And the state, the polis, was just the soil, the water, and the sunlight that you needed to grow.
And then, everything changed. A series of massive shocks just rocked the very foundations of the world, and a completely new answer to our big questions started to take shape. The ancient world was about to crash right into the modern one.
Think of it like a huge line of dominoes. First, the Reformation shattered a single unified religion. Then, the Copernican revolution literally kicked humanity out of the center of the universe. After that, revolutions in England and France got rid of the idea that kings were chosen by God. And finally, philosophers like Kant started poking holes in what reason could even prove. And just like that, the old world, with all its certainties, was gone.
So in this new, shaky, uncertain world, what was government even for anymore? Well, the new answer was the social contract. Thinkers like John Locke basically said, look, government isn't here to make you a good person. It's a tool that we all agree to create for one very specific job, to be a neutral referee. We follow its rules so we can protect the rights we're all born with: life, liberty, and property.
And this just shows you the complete 180-degree flip in thinking. The whole goal of politics shifts from making good people to protecting individual rights. The focus goes from the community to the individual, and the justification for government is no longer about fulfilling some grand, natural purpose. It's about a rational deal made between free people. I mean, it's an absolutely monumental change.
But, of course, this new liberal world, built on individual rights and contracts, wasn't exactly a hit with everyone. The ink was barely dry before some really powerful critiques started popping up from all sides.
The first big pushback came from people who were absolutely horrified by the chaos of things like the French Revolution. This was the birth of modern conservatism.
Conservatives looked at all this new talk about reason and logic, and they saw nothing but danger. They were asking, wait, why should one person's clever idea suddenly be more important than the wisdom of hundreds of years? For them, if a tradition or an institution has survived for centuries, well, it's proven its value in a way no abstract argument ever could. They trusted slow, careful change, not tearing everything down to start over.
The next big critique came from a totally different angle. This one wasn't about tradition. It was about money, factories, and the brand new world of capitalism.
So for Karl Marx, all this talk about rights and contracts, it was just a smokescreen. He argued that the real story of history was about the struggle between economic classes. And in his world, that meant the fight between the capitalists, who owned the factories, and the workers, who had nothing to sell but their own labor. The government, Marx said, wasn't some neutral referee. It was a weapon used by the rich to keep the poor down.
And then, in the early 20th century, a third critique emerged. And this one rejected everything: liberalism, conservatism, and Marxism.
This slogan is chilling, but it gets right to the point. Fascism was a total rejection of reason.
Fascists argued that politics isn't about rights or tradition or class. It's about the pure biological destiny of a nation or a race. It was a philosophy that glorified violence, war, and the absolute power of one leader, all in the name of forging a new kind of national unity.
So, okay, we've got all these grand competing ideas, but how do they actually work in the real world? Well, the day-to-day reality of politics is often a lot messier and way more strategic than any of these big theories.
Just imagine this. 3 politicians are voting on giving themselves a pay raise. Now, they all want the extra money, but none of them want to be the one their voters blame for it. So what's the perfect outcome for each of them? The bill passes, but with the other 2 voting yes. See, their choice isn't about what's right or wrong. It's a cold, hard calculation based on what they think everyone else is going to do. That is politics in action.
And turning a big idea into an actual law? It's an incredibly complicated process. One of the best models describes it like trying to catch lightning in a bottle. You need 3 separate streams to all line up at the exact same time, a problem that people are actually worried about, a realistic solution that's ready to go, and the right political mood for change. When that little policy window finally opens, someone has to be there to shove the idea through. And even then, the people who actually implement the law can end up changing it completely. It is never a simple A to B journey.
This is such a brilliant way to think about even the most sudden political changes. When a coup happens, it's not enough to just take over the capital. They've essentially performed a heart transplant on the country. Now comes the hard part. They have to convince the rest of the body, the military, the courts, the economy, not to reject the new organ. To survive, they have to become part of the system.
So after all these huge theories and messy realities, here we are, back in the present. And after thousands of years of debating, it's pretty clear the search for the best way to live together is far from over.
We are still stuck on these fundamental chicken and egg kinds of problems. What comes first? Do you need a democratic culture where people already trust each other and believe in the rules? Or do you build the democratic institutions first, the elections, the courts, and hope that they slowly teach people how to be good democratic citizens? Honestly, we still don't really know the answer.
And that, really, is the question that's left for all of us. The ancients gave us an answer based on virtue. The moderns gave us an answer based on rights. We've seen powerful critiques based on tradition, class, and race. But now, as we face a whole new set of challenges, things they couldn't have even imagined, we have to find our own answer to that oldest political question of all. How should we live together?